Hello, Aisha. Thank you for taking the time to be with me, with us on this interview, this journey. And I know you're kind of conducting this from Tobago, so it's a real privilege.
Yes.
So I thought we'd just dive into the questions and just to find out a bit about your work and what you do, and because there's a lot that you do offer. And I'm very interested and curious as to how people who are clinicians, non-clinicians can hear about what you offer and, the benefit of what that could be to them. So the first thought in my mind is, can you tell us a little bit about who you are and what led you to this work? Um, Something about therapy isn't working for Black people. I wondered what was happening in your life and career at that time.
Yes. Okay, so I am a retired now psychotherapist, um, doing little bits of support work here and there, mentoring, Reiki sharing, Reiki healing. Um, but most of all, I'm moving towards retirement, full retirement, expected at some point. I will be 78 this year, and I'm trying to take care of my health and my self-care. But of course, I've published books. And I was told once that once you publish a book, you are responsible for it. You're responsible for the readers. So to an extent, I get that. And so each month I'm presenting an audience with Dr. Aisha, where we are discussing, going through the chapters in the book. And those who are interested can come to the meeting online, talk about the chapters or any concerns they have or process elaboration that they need in terms of reading my work, not just that particular book, A Black Empathic Approach to Psychotherapy, moving from rage, growing from rage to compassion. Um, And that book, this book, is very significant now for me because as a mature person, I've always wanted to model how to do this work. And so throughout workshops, since I published my first book, Black Issues in the Process of Therapy, um, people have asked questions. So you're writing this, you research that. How do we do it?
Mhm.
And I've always wanted to assist people to find within themselves how to do it. And at the same time, role model how I'm doing this, which means showing myself, being transparent, talking about the work, challenging people's internalized racism, and supporting them to create robustness and courage to do this work with others because there's so much fear around addressing racism, anti-Black racism in particular, and challenging and supporting others to move through the trauma of it.
Mhm. And we know how important that is. You started off offering therapy service in Brixton. What were Black people coming through the door actually dealing with, and what made you realize the tools you've been trained with weren't enough?
Yeah. Um, the clients, who many of them were patients in the mental health system, the local mental health system, um, many of them had been misdiagnosed as schizophrenic or misunderstood because of their ways of expressing the trauma that they had experienced, on top of whatever family or lifestyle catastrophes they may have experienced. So it was being misread. Some of them were in hospital, and I would visit. Some of them would come to the project, the African Caribbean Mental Health Association. And most of all, this healing began when they could see a group of staff that looked like them.
Right. So representation matters, is what you're saying.
Yeah, it seemed to matter. It was like some of them would say it's like home from home.
Right.
And we were there to listen to the various aspects of their lifestyle dilemmas, for example, being sectioned, sent to hospital, being misunderstood, being misdiagnosed, not being seen for who they are, behaviors that they may have been using to express their dilemmas and traumas around not being treated fairly. And we had a variety of staff in that project. So there was housing worker for the homeless aspects of it. There was befriending because a lot of people were isolated. Support workers, people who work with the law to see if they could overturn the diagnosis and get them appropriate treatment and respite. And I started up a therapy service within that project.
Right.
Yeah, because the racism was not specifically being addressed, but they were being offered other services by Black therapists and professionals.
Right.
Yes. So that was my role.
Right. So when looking at the sort of wider issues, I guess maybe the intersectionality of why that person might be experiencing whatever difficulty at that time.
Yeah, and that's right. So I was responsible for recruiting a group of therapists of color who could be there as models and sort of steer it in a sense of a Black Empathic Approach.
Right.
Yeah, that was the first therapy group that they had there, or group of therapists that they had there.
So my next question to you is exactly that, the Black Empathic Approach. So for someone who's never heard of the Black Empathic Approach, how would you describe it in your own words? The way you might explain it to a friend or family member, because I kind of think there is something in there that would be beneficial to, somebody who's never sort of started or turned up at therapy before.
Yes. Well, first of all, it's a model of addressing what we know is true. And that's true because a lot of research and writing has been done on this now, on the impact of anti-Black racism on individuals and groups, the trauma that this causes, and the dismissal of this aspect of mental health in psychology and mental health work. We're moving because now there are individuals writing books, talking more about this, moving away from the idea of multiculturalism and diversity, and that's it, that will deal with it. Decidedly working on an approach to, I would say, Black on Black therapy or white on Black therapy, which includes addressing the impact of anti-Black racism, whether the client or individual is able to articulate their experience of it or not. So you have to bear that in mind if you're using the Black on Black approach. And there was a lot of fear in the universities that I was teaching in. There's a lot of fear about addressing this on both sides. The Black students were afraid that the white students would shut them down, or that they would faced the same dilemmas of not being believed and supported
Mm-hmm.
in the groups that they were in. The white students were afraid of addressing this, saying the word racism in case they would be called the racist.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never been into hunting the racist. I am into dismantling the impact of anti-Black racism. So that's to me what a Black empathic approach is. It's working with that dynamic and dilemma in whatever way it manifests or not.
Mm-hmm.
It might only manifest because you are sitting in front of someone with a brown or brown or darker skin, who you know, even if they can't articulate it, you know that throughout their life they would have been identified by their skin color
Mm-hmm.
and experience certain levels of anti-Black racism.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people think that that's not our business as therapists, but it is. It affects the mind.
Mm-hmm.
And once we start to acknowledge that and use our wisdom to notice the behaviors that happen as a result of that, we can work with them. So, for example, a person may come because they've been in a road accident and they're recovering, and their family is not treating them as well as they could, or the medical staff. They may come because of that, but if I see that they are a person of color, I will know that part of what is happening to them will be to do with the systemized racism that they're up against once they are in that system. And the same goes with teaching and training of therapists. That was where it came from for me. And you asked where did my rage begin? It began when I was training.
Because it's not mentioned, this idea of color blindness, which we can come back to. But what you're saying is it does matter. I was just wondering whether who do we bring it up? I mean, you said if you're working with somebody who is Black and they've been in hospital because of a road accident, you will know that, obviously their treatment would involve, structural issues around racism or the neglect. But is it something that is brought up, or is it something that, I mean, I'm wondering what you're thinking around who talks about it?
Yeah, who
Because I
talks
think for
about
me and you, it's almost sort of like a natural thing that just gets woven into the conversation anyway. And maybe the
yeah,
client just feels a bit more able and willing to discuss that because of the color. But I'm just thinking in a sort of white and Black dynamics. Who raises this, and should it be talked about?
yeah. So this model is for anyone to use.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a Black person of color, you would have experienced anti-Black racism during your life at some point, even if you haven't processed it yet.
Yeah.
If you're in this, what I call the perpetrator group, and your skin is white or even very light, you've been holding the nastiness of racism as you go through your life. And similar patterns would have emerged. You've been silenced, you have felt you had to be silenced.
Mm-hmm.
And it could have been by family, friends, or even your training institution. And for me, modeling this approach is about opening it up in those areas so it can be facilitated with compassion.
Right.
Yeah. And so that senior practitioners and educators can expect to support their students to be doing this work with support and become robust and feel confident that it's actually okay to speak about this. We
Yeah.
speak about things. We speak about feminism. We speak about domestic violence, sexism,
Mm-hmm.
sexuality. But why has it always been so difficult to speak about the impact of anti-Black racism.
Mm.
Was that
Indeed.
the answer to your question?
I think it does. I mean, the other thought that was in my mind is, I guess the people that do come onto your training, there is a level of preparedness that accompanies that. So they're kind of sort of in that zone, in that space anyway, sort of ready to receive and ready to lay their shame and their blame and their, all the other feelings that go with it to the side to be uncomfortable.
Yes. However, you may get the odd person, odd one or two people
Mm,
who don't know, are not clear what anti-Black racism is.
right.
Hence the term anti-Black racism, because when I started, we just used the term racism. And people got confused because they thought if you're Spanish and you're in the UK and there's prejudice against your language, then that's racism. But no, we're talking about against skin color here
Yeah, it's quite
as
specific.
part, yeah, as
Mm,
part of that.
mm.
And the other thing is that individuals may come and say, why do we need to do this? And they've come on to the workshop. So there's certain levels of naivety that happen,
Right.
silence, and get in the way of confidence to address this area. So the purpose of the workshops is to assist them to notice that we're up against the whole system
Hmm.
here. And changing that system, it means individuals need to feel robust enough, process their own internalized racism,
Hmm.
and get strong enough to think this is actually okay to do this work. And it's professional to do it. Because in one of my books, I talk about the ethics of not doing it.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, how can we do what we do and not do it is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Your book called Growing from Rage to Compassion.
Mm,
A lot of the Black people carry in real anger, and the anger is often treated like a problem. What made you
yeah.
decide to work with that anger rather than try to calm it down?
Yeah. And I think that's so important and key to this approach. But I had to start with myself
Right.
because way back in the early 90s, before I trained as a therapist, I worked with systemic groups like professional statutory organizations like the fire service, the police. I work with a mixture of colleagues to assist them to dismantle anti-Black racism
Hmm.
and also sexism.
Right.
And it was extremely painful work
Mm.
that enraged me.
Right.
So I was carrying the rage from my training. This that happened after, but I was carrying the rage from my life as a person of color, my
Hmm.
life experiences of racism. I hadn't fully realized at the time
Yeah.
that I was carrying that. I just wanted them to change and to believe that this exists and to do some work on it. There was so much resistance because obviously they're majority white groups and they felt what I call sheep dipped. They were sent to the training, mandated to the training and resistance. So working with that stirred up a lot of my anger from my life.
Hmm.
Then I became a trainee therapist and I noticed that my experience was excluded basically, and there were certain dynamics from the tutors about me introducing the idea of thinking Black, if you like, thinking about including what happens to BIPOC people, Black people and people of color. And I had to most of the time silence myself and just come out of the training and with a strong decision that I needed to do something about this. How can you learn if your equilibrium is disturbed because you're being silenced within that education system? Very difficult.
Mm. But it happens, doesn't it? And it's still happening,
Yes, yes,
which is the
still,
shame of the whole thing.
yes, absolutely.
Mhm. So I was going to ask you around the Black community. A lot of Black people are still skeptical about therapy. Some feel it's not for them or worry they'll end up having to explain their whole experience just to be understood. And what would you say to them directly?
Well, I would say that now we have the Black and Asian Therapists Network, which has grown tremendously
Mm,
since I started this work and offers a whole range of therapy approaches and clinicians who don't always necessarily sit face to face on chairs and, you know, or pretend a theoretical approach to this work. So first of all, I would say, if you want to find someone who's not strictly in a therapy discipline that is Eurocentric, you can search there.
the
People
Batten
are,
website.
yes, people have become more courageous in breaking away from models that they were taught
Mm,
when they were taught
mm,
listening skills. I would say we start off with listening skills, which
mm.
we all have, which we can all develop in certain ways that can support whoever we're working with. And so I believe, we've got a lot of robust people of color now
Mhm,
that can do what I would call black on black therapy or um, culturally appropriate therapy
mhm.
that can work with the idea that we don't want to wash our dirty linen in public. They can work with the idea that there are approaches that serve us between us
Mhm,
as people of color
mhm, mhm. So,
and
so
don't inculcate us back into a system that is
that
silencing
doesn't,
us.
that's right. So
Yeah.
things like, anger is not misunderstood as,
Yes.
I don't know, as a, aggression or not wanting to wash linen in public is not read as resistance.
Yes.
This idea of being able to meet the person, I guess, is what you're saying, where they're at, is
Yeah.
what the therapist. And I was also thinking that, the therapy we've learned is the beginning as opposed to an ending. So, you take whatever you learn and then you add whatever you need to add to make it into an authentic therapy of your own.
Yes. Absolutely. But there's a lot of fear about that because, as a lecturer in two main universities that were teaching counseling and psychotherapy, students were afraid that they would not pass
Right.
if
Yes.
they included the fact that they may have a brown skin or they may have experienced racism as an intersectional oppression,
Hmm.
and that they would like to be able to include that in the work that they're doing.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes, I think the system expects something of you, and there are far too many people that take the theory and, to some extent, in my mind anyway, regurgitate it in some way.
yeah,
It's almost like they haven't made anything of it, and I don't think that that is what it is about. The people that sort of established it, whenever, in whatever century, however long ago. It was just their idea in their era. So, things need to move on, surely, is how I feel.
absolutely. And we like titles,
Mm,
and like you become qualified, and I'm looking at listings and adverts, and I'm seeing lots of our people identifying as psychodynamic counselor or person-centered, or the label of their training goes up there as if it's a badge. But they're not explaining that they are, I would say, they might say they work with diversity. They're not necessarily explaining that they are empathic to the impact and trauma of anti-Black racism. They work in that way. So they're still using the labels that we came out of training with. Some people say I'm integrative, but you still need to explain that
What
if you
it
want to
means to
attract.
you.
Yeah, what it
You
means to
know,
you and can mean to those that you could be working with.
yeah, that's almost like a marketing tool, you see. I mean, to some extent, I think, I think I might also be sort of somewhat guilty of that in the sense of we all learn this particular framework within the Eurocentric approach. And some of it we just wear it until we begin to question it, until we
Yeah,
begin to take what works and let go of what doesn't work. And all of the
yeah,
things you're saying right now, I think it's been also partly a journey, to get to a place where actually, what kind of therapy do I want to practice? Who do I want to see? Do I want to
yeah,
see just Black people? Do I want to see a mixture of people? Do I want to work with gender issues? What do I want to do? And I
yeah.
think it's sort of something that one arrives at to some extent. So,
Mm.
and also people look for labels, oh, I want a CBT therapist, or, I want an integrative or psychodynamic, not really knowing what this framework actually means. So
Yeah.
actually talking actually gives you a flavor of the person, doesn't it?
Yes, but also I see that, we are free once we've done our training. We are free anyway,
Yeah.
but we
Yeah.
become inculcated by the training, same
Yes.
as me, you know, and then, which I say on my workshops, I say, you're now free. You can use
You
you.
need to take it somewhat or do something with it.
Yes, but your approach is you. It's not necessarily the label that you gained when you were
Right.
training. It's you.
Hmm.
And if you're using yourself and processing your own relationship with anti-Black
Yeah.
racism and
Yes.
how you are able to overcome the traumas of that, you're working with everything that you need.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So it's coming from that person's particular lived experience. So basically, each person has something to offer.
Yes.
We don't need to think I need to be like somebody else in order to feel, fully qualified.
Yes,
Mm.
because that's you deciding on the levels at which you are qualified rather than the system is qualifying you.
Exactly.
And,
Right.
there's a lot of unlearning that has to go with that.
Yes. Yes, there is a lot of unlearning, but it's actually knowing what needs to be unlearned as well. So I was actually just talking
Yeah.
about all of these issues today, and it takes me on to the question around decolonization and what that actually does and what that means and how we actually arrive somewhere. So the thought is decolonization is a word that gets used a lot
Yes.
in terms of
Mhm.
therapy. What does it actually mean in practice? And what would it look like for therapy training course to genuinely decolonize itself?
Yeah. So there's another label,
Hmm.
okay? But it represents a real historical um, diversity that is thread through our systems of learning
Hmm.
to point of Eurocentric training. Okay. Now, if we remember that most of the traditional approaches were presented by white men
Hmm.
from Europe, um, a few women were involved. Um, the Black therapists who um, were just as good. I'm trying to remember names at the moment, but my memory is not so good. But however, therapy has always been colonized because it's a colonizing aspect of society. And now you have social work as well, right? So therapy in itself is colonizing. You know, you don't go to, I would say, mid-Nigeria and expect therapy unless someone's given it the term.
Yes.
No, it's ways of working that are traditional. So somebody could have a problem with their arm. And here we might say, oh, it could be somatization. Out there, it might be that we need a certain ritual to assist the person to think into their arm and perhaps the grief that's happened to them so that they've shut down part of their body. Certain foods, cleansings, and rituals would be offered to the person. And care, group care, the elders in the village or the women in the village, if you like, would watch over that person until they came through what was happening. It might be called therapy now because of the modern world. But these are all traditional approaches that, where you could say have been colonized and turned into talking therapies in the Western world. And people have paid lots of money for those approaches. Whereas in collective societies, the rituals and group self-care, community self-care, is what helps to heal the person. So attending to the term colonization for me is, okay, we need to do that because a lot of us did not learn about colonization. Now, including myself, until I became Black, if you like, and began to study and notice and acknowledge that this is all part of what has happened to us as people with brown or Black skin colors and cultures. So, where am I? Don't let me get too carried away with this. But I do believe that it's another, the idea of colonization is a way of taming an anti-Black approach, an anti-Black, helping to clear up the anti-Black racism. So we had diversity, we had cultural diversity, we had multiculturalism, we had micro oppressions. People tried to change the title of the oppression because there was so much fear about saying, let's eliminate the mental health disorders that have come about as a result of anti-Black racism. And so I don't use the word colonization much. It's important, but decolonizing is not necessarily a Black empathic approach.
It's very loaded, isn't it? The decolonize.
Yes.
And
yes.
You kind of just think, okay, so I mean, where do you begin and where do you end?
Yeah, where you begin and where you end is stop trying to appease white people in terms of being in the perpetrator group and their fears of doing this work alongside us and doing the work that they need to do in order to stop the systemized anti-Black racism happening. So I think that, and I think a lot of it has come from our group. We are now using the term, it is a worm, yes.
And a worm.
We're using the term decolonization instead of a Black Empathic Approach. So I produced that term because I wanted people to continually remember that we are doing decolonization, but we do need to work with the impact of anti-Black racism as part of a huge part of that.
Mm.
And decolonization is huge.
Well, yeah.
It's not just about Black people, it's about Asian people, it's about countries that have been colonized as well as experience racism. It's huge.
It really is, isn't it? And
Yeah,
you know, somebody was saying something like that this idea of the hate, that when you think about it in sort of psychoanalytic terms, which is that people carry and then it's projected onto skin color, and the idea that that's going to have to be taken back in some way, then what do
yeah.
people do with it? It's almost as if they need something or someone to project that onto. So if they have to take that back, that hate, what sort of society and what kind of world do we then have? It
Mm,
shouldn't really be a problem that we need to think about, but it's a question that I think needs to be worked on, because if we can be a bit more empathic with one another, just see the
yeah,
humanity in one another,
yeah,
not wanting to blame the other for something that's, own whatever is going on for ourselves, and have that sort of shared communal experience, because it's not just all about you, then maybe
yeah.
we begin to kind of think somewhat differently. But maybe that's me being somewhat optimistic.
Good. It's good to be optimistic, and let it roll on because this is not a one point process or a
Yeah.
1 day process. It's a
Mm.
lifetime process.
Yes. And I think, yes, I think, you are right in that sort of optimism bit, because if one is not, then what? Do you think mainstream therapy as it currently exists is capable of that kind of change? Or does something more fundamentally need to shift?
Mainstream therapy does need to change. Um, it's slow because of who's in charge. You know, those at the top need to do their work, and that makes me feel like I want to swear because often they say we don't have the money or we can't change our program and they act as though it's down to us to bring it to them
Hmm.
because they have so much, they're saturated with resistance,
Yeah.
And I've had individuals in key areas in training programs who've asked me to do a little bit of consultation work with them and nothing happens.
Yeah.
And they
Yeah.
say the students are worried, they need to help the students. You need to help yourself first.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm.
Then you need to develop robustness, clarity, compassion, acceptance that this exists and it needs to change now.
Mm. So when we talk about change specifically, what are we talking about? I mean, one of the ideas that come into my head is the vast amount of writing that is out there at the moment,
Yes, there is.
which can be inclusive in the syllabus.
And I'm so happy about that.
Mm.
But Bell Hooks said they don't believe us until we write it, but that's still not the point. The point is that it's written and we need to move into action, to use the writing, to do something about the curriculum, to make sure the money is used to transform programs for all students, and that they stop trying to this is part of colonization, that it's tied up. It's tied up in timetables, in traditional colonial requirements to pass and be accepted in the traditional colonial system. And so one by one, students of color leave, or they check out mentally, or they've failed.
Yeah.
And any white student who is resisting that change, it is past usually. It's like they resist by their silence. Yeah. It's very, very tricky and very difficult, but which organization is brave enough to make those changes? Even if you have people of color in control of that. I mean, I offered a training workshop a couple of years ago with my facilitators I think it was part of a social work program. And it was being organized by a couple of Black workers. And as soon as they realized that I wasn't just going to collude, I needed to challenge their behavior as well.
Well, this is the management now.
Yeah, but our people were in management. They had so much internalized racism that they were, what I would say, undermining what we were offering to them.
Right.
By disappearing or not cooperating, not turning up on some days, and then eventually rubbishing the program. So we can have a high level of internalized racism, even working in senior roles in the systems that support Eurocentric control.
Yes.
Huge.
So we've got a problem, Houston.
Yeah.
We've got a problem.
We have
But
a problem.
what Batten is actually doing and what you're doing, is fantastic, which is running these courses, for anyone that wants to come along and, certified courses now. It's fantastic, isn't it? And
It is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to see more courage to assist individuals compassionately to do this work rather than just addressing it theoretically.
Right.
Because one of the first outcomes of my research was students and people in conferences, senior people, asking, "This is really good, but how do you do it?" So call to action. There's a lot of written work.
Right.
Keep showing and supporting those who have a certain level of robustness already to actually do the work, not just to talk about it. Yeah.
Yes, it almost feels to me that there is a system in place that makes it almost difficult, if not impossible. And anyone who is trying to do the work, who steps outside of the sort of system that keeps trying to reinforce,
Yes.
will find it very difficult because it's almost as if they also need to be supported in doing the work. But
Yeah.
the system is so strong in such a way that, people who even want to do the work, like allies, also feel somewhat ostracized from within. So
Yeah.
it's really, there's something that goes around reinforcing whiteness in itself. And I think in a way, we can only ask people who want to do the work to come forward by what we're doing and sharing that actually this is a work about humanity. It's not a work about, oh, come and help the Black poor student. This is a work about people and the next generation and making it in such a way that, we have a vast amount of different people who come onto the training with different experiences who can support the range of people we have on this planet. Well, that's the way I see it anyway.
Well, it's true. I mean, it's a collective, universal thing. And so on my workshops, I expect that people will support and challenge each other, no matter what color, what discipline they're in, you know, what level of professionalism they're at. That it is about humanity,
Mm-hmm.
but it's also about willingness
And
to
learning from one another. Sorry, I interjected.
yeah,
Willingness to try and,
to transform.
yes, yes. But there's a fear around that, almost as if they're going to lose something. I mean, this whole
Massive.
idea of curiosity about the other is can only enrich, surely.
You're absolutely right. I mean, the fear is massive,
Mm,
but you can see that the fear is dissipating because of the huge amount of literature that's coming out now,
yeah, yeah,
uh, mostly from people of color.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
we're not really seeing anything that bold from the perpetrator group. And that needs to happen. It needs to be an acknowledgement. It needs to be a promise to do the work, to assist the work that's already being done, a promise to work collectively on this and not be afraid, a promise to work on the fear that's fundamental to keeping this in one place,
Mm-hmm,
and that's what it is. And freedom. To me, we are free.
mm-hmm,
Many of us, including myself,
mm-hmm.
became incarcerated in the system because we trusted that that was the place where we could learn to be better people or better therapists and help others. But when I talk about in this most recent book, I think it was how the elephants and the giraffes crowd around each other when a baby's being born. They don't run away and turn their heads. It's part of their clan.
Mm,
It's part of their tribe.
mm,
You know, they're watching on to make sure it happens safely. They're
yeah,
curious.
mm,
Yeah. And I watch a lot of survival programs now, partly because there's American rubbish on the TV most of the time. So I watch a lot of survival programs and mainly because I want to see how the animals are behaving,
mm,
how the humans are behaving with the animals,
mm.
and how, it's amazing
It is,
how
isn't it?
they assist each other.
And we can learn so much from them.
Absolutely.
I mean, you just have to look at them. I mean, even the very small animals,
Yes.
just the fact that that there's a collective thing going on.
There's a colony. I mean, look at ants, for,
Yeah,
for
yeah,
example.
yeah, yeah. Just
You know?
outstanding.
Yeah.
You've spent over 30 years doing the work and you have now trained others to carry it forward. What do you most hope this approach grows into?
Oh, well, I hope this approach keeps growing, that it grows into a demand and um, a genre in the field that changes the way therapy is seen and presented. That will influence the way um, training organizations and the individuals that uphold the Eurocentric approaches think about and activate this, my promise, I would say. But there are others too promising this because they've been writing about it. Some of them have gone into the science of this area, some have gone into the experiential area, which is mainly what I do. But the field will be challenged by a Black empathic approach and take it on, not see it as a huge task or a resistance or a huge financial burden or, it's why not?
It's just a way, isn't it? I remember when I was learning a new language, and well, I was learning to teach English in Spain. And one of the things they asked us to do was to spend some time learning Japanese. To which I thought, what? Japanese? How am I going to learn Japanese, for goodness sake? But actually, interestingly, in that, they're kind of trying to say to us, imagine you having to learn something totally new. And how do you
Yeah.
go about embracing that? So it's just being interested in the culture, because I am trying to do something in a different country, and it's just sort of getting one's head around difference. So it feels to me, that just came to me naturally when you said that, something about how can you work with the person that sat in front of you if you're not at all curious about their experience of being in the world? To me, that's as fundamental as it is. So we could be talking about gender, we could be talking about, all the other isms. I mean, you've got to show some interest in their lived experience.
Yes. And that's about the self. It's about the person who calls himself a therapist or a coach. It's about being able, allowing yourself and training yourself to think more broadly, more
Mm-hmm.
curiously, as you say,
Mm-hmm.
uh, to acknowledge, accept, and notice where your own experience comes into this, and
Mm-hmm.
how you can tailor your experience to actually work with it mentally, spiritually, physically, and emotionally,
Yeah.
so that you can model something
Yes.
for the
So there's a lot
people
of
that you're
work.
working with.
Exactly.
Yes,
So first of all, there's that work to be done within the therapist in terms of your own identity.
yes,
Yeah, is what I think you're saying. And
yes. That's true.
sorry, is that did you
I'm
want
just
to say
saying
more
that's true.
too? That's true.
I'm just acknowledging that. Yeah.
And finally, if a young Black person watching this is thinking about becoming a therapist, what would you want them to know about what they bring into that room just by being who they are? What would you want them to know about what they bring into that room just by being who they are? I think that's just like, what do they need to know? How do they need to appear? Do they need to think anything of who they are? I mean, what would you be saying to them?
Well, when you're bringing yourself in for training, you're bringing the whole of you. You're not bringing the piece that can prove that you're a good person,
Mm-hmm.
that you don't hate anybody, that you've had an amazing, beautiful childhood that gave you the tools to face what's going on in the world now.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's important to notice where you can grow, and also in particular in relation to the color of your skin, your cultural background, and how important it is for you to be able to model use of that in the work that you're doing in supporting others.
So bring yourself fully.
Bring yourself fully and know that no matter what you're told to do, you
Mm-hmm.
are free. You come in free, well, to 11, to a level, but you're giving yourself freedom by expressing who you are holistically
Mm-hmm.
throughout your learning process.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Even if there's kind of a lot of, you're not kind of being seen or mirrored, even if there's a lot of resistance to who you are, sort of
Yeah,
hold on to who you are,
hold
don't
on.
hold on to that. And I guess
Yeah,
that would be the same to anybody a client who comes into a therapy room, um,
yes,
would need to sort of just hold on to who they are and have the freedom to express themselves, is what you're saying.
absolutely.
Yeah. Otherwise, there's no therapy taking place, is there?
That's right. And remember your self-care along the road.
Hmm. Tell me a bit about that self-care along the road.
Yeah, I mean, self-care has become a big one for me, particularly as becoming an elder. and having a chronic illness, but also self-care in terms of what comes into me, from outside of me.
Yeah.
How I take care of myself if I bounce up on aggression, hatred, ignorance, and others who are not taking care of themselves. It's so important for me to notice that I'm worthy of self-care, that I can do creative things to continue assisting my own personal development, growth, and rest and recovery from the years of this work,
Yes, no, absolutely.
as well as my own life process.
So
Yeah.
just a final word. I know you're running this courses, you're saying, and taking a chapter of your book, and the next one is in May, you said?
Yes.
Yeah.
Next one is in May, and the title is Working with Internalized Racism.
Which would be very useful to everybody.
To everybody.
Because we carry that. So are these groups sort of just a group for everybody? So we're talking white, we're talking black, we're talking anybody?
Yes, it is.
Mm-hmm.
And some people exclude themselves from that,
What do you mean?
from accepting that the book is for them,
Right.
as well as, like in the perpetrator group. Is it, they'll send a question. Is it only for black people?
Oh, I see.
No?
Yeah, no, of course not. Yes.
Yeah.
No, it can't be, can it? We all carry it, don't we?
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's for everyone and anyone who's in the helping professions in particular. It's even for lay people and clients who are interested in what this is all about. You can learn something from every chapter in the book. And so I presented the space, for people to talk about what I've written about, why I've written about it, how I've written about it, because there's a lot of personal stuff in there. And also, my other books have personal stuff in them and, ways of thinking about this. So some people come because they haven't actually read the chapter, but they've read another book and they're curious about something in there. But it all links up.
And I think, you mentioned the personal things in there. To me, that just says something about you, about, your openness, and it's easier to some extent, trust somebody who's there, this is me. The work we do, a lot of, we're not expected or supposedly meant to put ourselves out there, but I don't know how we do it without actually, I think this is part of what we're talking about, really. In a way, you're demonstrating that, even though I know at the same time it's not easy.
Yes, I'm demonstrating breaking the silence. Many areas of my life where I've broken the silence. And to me, transparency is a key area as well. Because you can see my skin color, but you can't see how I'm leading my life or what it is in my life that inspires me and provokes me and helps me to feel the passion of doing this. So that's why I've written more about me this time than in any of my other books.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Isha McKenzie-Mavinga.
You're very welcome, Abby, and thank you for the conversation.